Let's say I ask you to name the handsomest man in rock and roll. And let's say the same guy is also known as the world's most entertaining man. Who am I talking about? If your answer is Bret Michaels or John Bon Jovi, one of us is going to punch you square in the face because the answer is not Bon Jovi and it's not any of the guys in Poison because there can only be one man that fits that bill, and he is known as the secret weapon. The guy I'm talking about is Handsome Dick Manitoba, the former lead singer from the band The Dictators, and that man is handsome as hell. And just like the name of his podcast, if you don't know Handsome Dick Manitoba, then you don't know Dick. And Handsome Dick Manitoba is my guest this week on Baxy's Musical Podcast.
It's Baxy's Musical Podcast.
In 1975, the band The Dictators released what is arguably one of the very first New York punk records ever with Go Girl Crazy. That was a full year before the Ramones put out their first album, 2 years before the Sex Pistols released their first album, long before punk music was even called punk music. Back then, it was just called music that was faster, louder. And while the Dictators may not have gotten the praise or the credit they deserved in changing the musical landscape of New York City back then, their album Go Girl Crazy was incredibly influential at the time, and it's still one of the most entertaining records ever. And while he didn't start off as the band's lead singer, he is a guy who went from being one of the world's worst roadies to one of the most unforgettable frontmen in history. Handsome Dick Manitoba has gone from being a musical icon with the Dictators to fronting his own band Manitoba's Wild Kingdom to becoming the lead singer of the reformed MC5 in 2005 and hosting his own radio show for 14 years and then podcasting to running a bar in New York and doing a ton of stuff in between. This is my conversation with Handsome Dick Manitoba from the Dictators on Baxy's Musical Podcast.
Hey, man.
Hey, Dick, how you doing?
Okay, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. So thanks for taking the time. I know you got some free time on your hands, but I do appreciate it nevertheless. So you just had hip replacement surgery?
Yeah, about coming up on a month now.
And how are you feeling?
I tell you, the first 10 days, I was like scary because it's like, okay, when's it gonna get better? And I knew it would. It's just like you have to wait it out and have faith that it's gonna happen. And then, one day it was 20% better, and then now it's almost a month. And it's I actually walked around the house a little bit without any cane at all. So, I first of all, everybody, 100% of the people I spoke to, which is about 25 people, including doctors who's had it and surgeons, have told me it's of all these type of operations, it's the best in terms of recuperation and I have a friend who had it 12 years ago. He said it's never bothered him at all since.
I know a bunch of people who have had it, and because their hip was so bad on one side, they actually had to get the other one done because they were favoring, one hip over another for so long that it wound up damaging the other hip.
They told me when they took X-rays, the other hip will look worse.
Yeah,
but
right.
this one hurt worse. So I went to this place called HSS, Hospital for Special Surgery, and all I can tell you is I'm not kidding. I've had doctor friends tell me it's the best in the world for that type of surgery. So the bone is, every step I take, the bone is rubbing on the bone, and it hurts like hell.
Jesus.
For months. And then I was supposed to go and get it done, and then this fucking virus hit, so I had to wait 4 more months.
So you've just been sitting around. I mean, for a guy who's been, spent the last almost 50 years being very, very busy, to suddenly be kind of laid up and doing nothing has got to be pretty big change for you.
Yeah, it's in a way, it's simultaneous with the change that everybody's gone through, except I was going through what everybody was going through and this,
yeah.
So it really wasn't that big of a difference, because even if I didn't have this, what would I be doing anyway?
So I got to tell you a quick story. It's about, actually, it would be 30 years now. I was doing a morning radio show in Milwaukee. and my partner, who was a little bit older than me, actually he's older than both of us for that matter, but he comes in one day and he's waving this album around. He says, look at this," and it's like he said, "It's Manitoba's Wild Kingdom," and he says, "Take whatever we're playing off the air. We're gonna play The Party Starts Now," and when you and I'm working again. It's a commercial radio station. It's a big rock station. The program director comes in and he said, "What the fuck are you guys playing?" And he's like, my partner saying it's Handsome Dick from the Dictators, and the guy didn't care who he was playing. It was just a matter of he was playing somebody that he didn't pick, and told us to never do it again. So in a way, you got us in trouble at work. I wanted to thank you for it because we kept on playing it, but it kind of sparked this thing where I wanted to go back and find out more about the band and about you. And as hard as it was to find Go Girl Crazy, I finally found it like 10 years later. And I've loved the band ever since. It's like one of those records that you guys created something long before you took enough credit for it. Thank you for setting me right on the right path.
Well, I guess you're welcome. I mean, you do what you like doing, and you get a certain amount of people that. Well, it was never a lot of people, but you get a certain amount, enough people that, especially with the 20 years in the bar, that come up to you and tell you this album means a lot to me, and I turned it on to my son, and it changed, and this and that. So I always was one of the kind of guys that like, all right, I didn't play Madison Square Garden, but I've always had people come in from different countries and different states in my bar for 20 years, telling me how much they loved what I did and how much it meant to them, and every one of them means something to me. I said, dude, you understand something, that how much that means to me, that I did something, and you're coming to tell me how much it meant to you. It's an even fucking trade. I'm not being falsely humble here. I'm not. That's the way I really feel. But why would your boss give a shit if you found something new and played something new?
Well, because you've been in radio for a while, you know that sometimes it's not necessarily about what it is. There are rules and parameters that they want you to follow, whether or not those parameters make any sense whatsoever. And
I hear you.
you,
Yeah,
you,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you're
You're right. You're right. You're
so
right.
those that program director put food on the table for a little while until his career went into the crapper. But nevertheless, it's one of those little fights you have from time to time when you hear something so great and you say this needs to be played, because it was just, I mean, that one single was just a great fun party song, kind of like so many of the Dictator stuff was way back when. It's a great song.
It's like from my understanding, it was a big. I don't know if it was national, but at least in certain areas of the country, it was the Friday afternoon drive home from work and school song. The weekend is here. That was like the official song.
I tried to do as much research on you as I possibly could. The thing that I keep reading over and over again is that you guys never got the credit you deserved. And you hear all the time that that ground zero for punk music starts with the Ramones, but it really doesn't. It goes back so much further, not just the Dictators, but it goes back to all the the underground bands that Little Steven has been playing for years. The Sonics and some of those other bands. How inspired were you guys at the time by that kind of garage rock?
I mean, personally, I wasn't. I later, fell in love with Lenny Kaye's Nuggets, and I guess you could go back before there were words called punk rock and garage rock. I don't know if they called it that back then. I don't know. I really don't know what they called it, but Lenny Kaye, that was the Bible of that music, of the original what did I just say? I can't fucking say.
The Nuggets.
I'm here. I'm half asleep. The original Nuggets was the Bible, and when I heard all that stuff, I loved it. But I must say that by the time I heard it, I was more familiar with the Stooges and the MC5 and bands like that. So those were my pre punk and garagey type bands. I heard a lot of those garage bands, but I hear them a couple of times, like one hit wonders, but it
Right.
wasn't like stuff I studied, or I wasn't on top of it like a lot of my friends were. I was more, they were more like they'd buy every magazine, every record, and be on top of everything. And I was just hanging out with them, following, going, oh yeah, that's a great record. Yeah, I like that. I was like hanging out with them more than discovering stuff by myself.
Yeah.
The Velvet Underground and
Right.
stuff like that, which
I heard the podcast. It was a 2-part podcast you did with Lenny Kaye. I mean, you want to talk about a guy who's just had his hands in everything. Never, not just nuggets, but playing with Patti Smith for the last 10,000 years. I mean, that guy's career is like just ridiculous.
Yeah, well, there are certain people in my life like Lenny Kaye and Danny Fields especially, and what's his name who passed away, Lee Childers, and there are people like that like I actually shut up and listen to because their stories are so amazing. Bob Bruin, like riding around town with Bob with John Lennon, Bob Bruin,
Right.
girls chasing, and forget about what's his name stories with the Doors guy, fucking.
Oh, Jim Morrison.
He's riding around like Jim Morrison's drunk. He's like taking away Jim Morrison's car keys from him, and he was friends with the Beatles, and he was part of the Andy Warhol crew. I mean that's a guy who's that's the living history of our rock and roll.
Speaking of stories, so the Dictators start, and you are not the lead singer. You are a roadie at in the beginning, but then somehow
I was a friend.
Yeah, just a friend of the band, but somehow you get on stage, and it's like you're like a wrestling heel. So how did it go from that, from being a roadie, from apparently the worst roadie in the world, to being the singer of the Dictators?
Well, it was really like I needed a job. We got to give Richard a job because he's our best friend. So let's make him a roadie. I wasn't really a roadie. I wasn't supposed to be a roadie. And the first time they ever put a microphone in my hand, people had a tremendous, tremendous reaction. People like Debbie Harry. That's Debbie Harry. What's Debbie Harry's boyfriend's name?
Chris Stein. Chris Stein.
Chris Stein was there. As the years go, you ever heard a story? As the years go on, like more and more people were there. This is one of those stories. Like Chris Stein was there. I know Chris Stein was there, and there was a whole bunch of like rock and rollers were there that went nuts when I did this one song "Wild Thing" at the end of the set. And just to be quite honest with you, Andy was like a guy who should have stayed home on the chalkboard, drawn up the plays, and then given the ball out to the team to go play football.
Yeah.
So instead, because he wrote the songs, he took over the air rights around the Dictators, and it wasn't right. It wasn't right because there are certain things in the world that are right, because they work out right, they sound right, they feel right, people respond to them right, and it was the minute I had a microphone, that was right. That should have been my job. And, Andy didn't kind of see it that way. He didn't have the personality. He didn't have people didn't really give a fuck when he was singing. So it wound up working out like that.
Yeah. You're talking about Andy Chernoff. But, so the guy writes all the songs and he does all these things, but it sounds like there was almost resentment from the beginning from him about your presence on stage. Was it resentment on his part, or was it just like a control issue?
It was everything. It was resentment. It was control. It was he always had this lack of respect for how I worked or how I treated my craft as compared to other people he worked with. Yeah, I mean, it could have been, but it wasn't. It could have been a situation where, you know what, like I've heard stories. I was on the road with the MC5. This is how Rob Tyner worked. This is how Joey Ramone worked. You know, Richard doesn't work like that. He doesn't work like one of these guys who spends all his time on his craft. But what he does do is like this and this and this. And what he does give you is this and this and this. And what he does give the audience is this and this and this. He gives you all that, but he doesn't give you what Andy wants and the way Andy wants it. And it's too bad because what he never realized is when you write the songs, he's like, they're his babies, he kept saying. They're his babies. That doesn't mean it's your band. It means you write the songs, you get paid for writing the songs. You do a job, you get paid for doing the job. You had a great guitar player for 43 years in the band, a great frontman for 43 years in the band. You had a great band bringing your songs for 40 years. It was a band. It was the magic of rock and roll, which makes it us, we together, these bunch of people together with what they bring equals the magic of rock and roll. But for some reason, because he wrote the songs, he felt he should have got paid more than just getting paid for writing the songs. He should complete control over everything because he wrote the songs. And that's what destroyed the Dictators, really, in the long run.
I've seen it before, in other bands where there's a certain currency that may not get the respect that it needs, and that currency would be showmanship. So, like for example, like a David Lee Roth is a showman. He may not be the best singer in the world. He may not even be the best guy in the world. But when he's on stage and when Van Halen came out, there's no question that it was all showmanship. And when they got rid of him, it like there were fans that kind of craved that. Even when they were, still successful and still selling records, there were still a good number of people that said, I wish that showmanship was still there because that's what I really connected to. And I think that's not that much different than your situation. Here, you can see it in videos on YouTube. You can hear it on the records. There's a showmanship that you brought to the table that was completely undeniable.
Yeah, and I think it has really very little to do with technical. I mean, we're not talking about unbelievable singers here and unbelievable. We're talking about like a real good guitar player, a real good drummer, and a guy who, when they put a microphone in his hand, there's something that comes off of me. I'm not making myself like Iggy. Iggy's one of my heroes. Iggy's 10 times me. But what Iggy does, I do like 10% of what Iggy does. When he put a microphone in his hand, people just respond. And it's the same thing with me, and it's the opposite with Andy. And then over the years, it just got worse and worse and worse until it got like a really bad relationship. It's about the worst relationship. It's like one of those rock bands that's the worst relationship in the world now. It really is.
But when you think about the timing, so you guys, their first album comes out in '75. You've been around for a little bit before then. What were the reactions of crowds when you guys first started to go on stage? 'Cause, I mean, the music was very different than most people were listening to in '74, '75. What's you open
terrible.
for? I would imagine. I mean, you must have stuck out like a sore thumb.
Well, I mean, when we played with Rush, yeah, but when we played when we played in certain areas, L.A. and New York and punk rock clubs in San Francisco, the Mabuhay Gardens, when we played like the first punk rock clubs, and there were people writing for Cream magazine and stuff. It was great, but that's a real minute part of the big picture.
Yeah, I mean, you opened for, like you said, Rush, but there was also Blue Oyster Cult and Nazareth, and did you guys open up for Kiss, or did Kiss open up for you?
We opened up for Kiss, but AC/DC opened up for us once.
And how was that?
It was great. They loved us. They loved us. We loved them. Someone said that, I didn't read their book. Someone said in their book that they considered us like a really great band, and I still love them to this day.
Yeah. You guys did establish some other long relationships. I know you guys you became very friendly with Bruce Springsteen and the rest of his band. So how did that come together?
Well, we were making a record at a legendary place in New York called the Record Plant, and we were like down the hall, like Studio D, and they were like at the beginning when you first walked in at Studio A, doing Darkness on the Edge of Town, and we were doing Blood Brothers, and so we saw each other every day for a month, and outside of the fact that they were becoming huge, and we weren't, they were basically outside of that fact, they were basically a bunch of great musicians from New Jersey, a bunch of guys who came up the hard way, and we were a bunch of guys from New York who had a sense of humor, and we were the. It was if you remove the fame and the money, and you just put the guys together, we were just a bunch of guys who would have hung out in a bar and had beers and laughed and goofed. And that's what we were in the studio.
And Bruce did the countdown for Faster Louder, right?
Yeah, he came in. We asked him to do something, and he counted down the middle of the song.
He couldn't. He couldn't write for you because the night like he did for Patti Smith.
It would have been nice if he wrote a song, but that's what he did.
I was reading this one incident that I'm curious about because I'm sure there's a number of different sides to this. What happened between you and Wayne County?
Well, exactly. It's hard to say because there's probably 50 different people with 50 different opinions. The last I left Jane, we've been friends for many, many years. He DJ'd at my bar many times. The last few times we were on the phone, we were both talking about our passionate love of the state of Israel. Isn't that weird? And supposedly, what happened was I was drunk and Jane was fucked up on pills, and I was CBGB's was like a 1 foot high stage, and in order to get to the bathroom, you had to sort of walk on the side of the stage to get to the bathroom. You couldn't walk around the stage. So I yelled something, which I thought was funny and charming and snotty and obnoxious, but not like nasty or mean. And then he yelled something really mean and nasty back to me. And I yelled something mean and nasty back. And the next thing, it was like his guitar player picked up his guitar over his head like he was going to bash me in the head with it. And then as I put my hands up to protect myself, Jane hit me with a microphone stand. And then for years it was not good, and then we became friends.
How do you get to the point where you break a collarbone and now you're calling each other and hanging out? Because that's if someone tried bringing me with a microphone stand, I'm pretty sure that would end our further conversations.
I was in my 20s. I was fucked up. He was in his 20s, a little older. He was fucked up. It was a misunderstanding. He was a Dictator fan. I don't even think he knew it was me. I think it was just a guy trying to protect his life. And it took 15 years till we made up. And we made up.
Wow,
that was
cool.
like, that was like 25 years. We probably made up about 25 years ago.
Wow. You mentioned the MC5 a little bit earlier, and then many years later, you got to sing for them. That had to be a hell of a thrill to sing with the MC5.
Oh yeah, but the way I tell that story is, I had my kid was about 2 years old, and it was pouring rain, and I was just starting to smoke cigarettes because I was so nervous that I had a kid at my age, and I came out of a supermarket with the plastic cover over the carriage, and I'm trying to smoke and blow the smoke away, and I got like bags balancing on the thing, and I'm pushing him in the pouring rain, and the phone rings, and I had a flip phone at the time, and I'm holding it on my neck with a cigarette in my mouth, and Wayne Kramer asked me if I want to go for about almost 3 weeks to Europe and to tour, and I said, well, let me just talk it over with the old lady, because we got a kid, but it sounds good. The reason I got asked because when they were in New York playing the Bowery Ballroom, They had a bunch of like what they did at the time was have MC5 friendly guitar players and singers, and they had a group of people that is a solid band, and then a group of people coming on doing a bunch of different things. They would travel with somebody who'd be one of the lead singers on one tour, one of the guitar players on another tour. So I got a write up in the Village Voice saying that Handsome Dick Manitoba just about stole the show for the MC5 with his two versions of blah blah blah. So that's when he asked me if I wanted to come to Europe. So my basic attitude, my basic, I guess, joke I tell about it is, okay, Richard, how would you like to go travel around Europe and get paid money to sing "Kick Out the Jams" with the MC5? That's like my joke. The answer is, I'd like to.
Yeah, I bet you would. I bet you would. I mean,
Yeah.
anyone who's a fan of that music, I mean, talk about like a dream
Oh,
opportunity
it's
to
so
play
great.
with those guys.
We take our like that. Each venue had like a private bath, shower. You take a shower. You get in your pajamas. You get on the bus. I sit in the back, fucking talk to these guys for hours. You know, bouncing around country to country. It was fucking awesome.
I know that a while back you closed Manitoba's. It was a bar that you owned in New York for 20 years, and that shut down. And I know there was a lot of issues about it, legally, and I don't know how much you can really get into, but the pictures that I've seen, you had pictures everywhere of you and Iggy Pop and Joe Strummer and Keith Richards and Brian Wilson, all this great stuff. It was almost like a Hard Rock Cafe without the $30 nachos. I mean, it was. it, it looked like such a great place, and to not have that, is there any desire to reconsider that, or reopen, or to put it in a different location, or where do you stand on that?
Well, there's a few different things going on about it. It's like I on one level I have a great desire to have it again because I call it my clubhouse. Like right now, I got nothing to do. I would just walk over there, hang out, see who comes in. I'd meet 2 or 3 people from England, 2 people from Sweden, 2 people from Texas. I see my friend Tom. We watch the Yankee game together. It was my clubhouse, and that's what I loved about it. But I don't think it would happen again because I'm not a good businessman in that way. I'm not. You have to love something. What I loved about it was what I loved about performing. I love entertaining people. I love telling stories. I love people coming in and then going home and saying, I met Manitoba, he told me a great story. What I didn't love about it was going down every Monday morning and counting out like 2.3 bottles of this, 2.7 bottles of this, and also the actual running of a bar. It's like a restaurant. It's like it has to be a business. You have to do it all the time.
Right.
You have to do it with passion. You have to watch every bartender. You have to watch every pour. It's like I had I want to write a book. I want to go back on the road and do something. It might not be a full-on band. It might just be telling stories and playing songs. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do something entertaining to people again because that's what I want to do. I want to have a book out at some point. So at my age, with all these things to do, for me to devote, which you have to do, devote myself to running the bar, I'd have to make a choice, bar or everything else. And with the bar, it was so small, I needed to hire a really, really trustworthy, hardworking, talented manager,
Right.
which we couldn't afford because we were too small. And plus, I didn't even own a majority of the bar. The big rock star that did decided, like, that's enough. We're losing enough money. We're closing. And that was that.
And that was that. It sounds like the same thing where about the radio show you had when Little Steven's Underground Garage channel on satellite. It's very much like so much of what you do, you're pouring your heart and soul, and you're doing a really good job. But then someone decides, okay, we're going to put the brakes on this. It sounds kind of like there's some parallels between the radio show and the bar at the same time. Is that do you see it that way?
There was. It's exactly the same thing. Well, what I did this thing which I wasn't supposed to do, and then they fired me after 14 years, never missing a day. So I said, come on, give me a chance. I mean, give me a 2-week notice. I mean, give me something. Fired me 14 days. So supposedly my boss up there said that he went to fight for me, and they said no, no, no. So then I heard Andy really mean. Like Andy did this podcast on my friend's show, and it was almost like he had glee in his voice every time something went wrong with me. Every time I did something wrong, so someone said, Richard got fired because he drew a Jewish star on a Palestinian girl's desk. So Andy went, no, he didn't. That's not why he got fired. That's not. I have the. And he started getting crazy. Like he was so excited to know the reasons. He said, I have emails. I have emails from Steven. Steven said, if you fuck up again, I'm telling you, this is your last chance. If you fuck up again, as the years went, I was friends with Steve Van Zandt for 40 years.
Right.
He used to call me up. Let's go out to eat dinner. Let's go to a Broadway show. Let's go this. Let's go that. He lost money at the bar, but over the period of years, I guess it didn't wind up with that much money. But it's not for me to say. He didn't do well. I didn't do well at the bar. I understand them closing it. Okay. The thing is, the fact that Andy had such glee, saying like, I know, I saw these things. Steve showed me these things. Steve said, if you fuck up again, and as the years went by, Steve got weirder and weirder with me. Like I would say bad things about Mickey Lee, Joey Ramone's brother,
Right.
who was like a total knucklehead, and Steve was on his side. So Steve. Then other people would call and complain about me, and then the worst thing was that I was there 14 years. I still talk to about 25 people there, right? I still am in touch. He said people kept coming up complaining about Richard. Now, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
This is a really common sense question. If you worked in a place for 14 years, right?
Right.
And you worked with like 500 people in that 14 years, and people came up to your boss, and let's say 20 people came up and said, I don't like that guy. I don't like the way he behaves. He's this. He does this wrong. He does this wrong. Okay. I can admit that. I have a strong personality. I put my shit out there. People like me. People don't like me. People love me. People hate me. All right. The other 475 people going to come up to your boss and say how much they like you? That's my whole point. My whole point is no one's going to come up and say, Richard's a great guy. I love him. Do you know how much I love Richard? It's like all these things Andy had lined up where everyone said, yeah, but he's a great father because I'm a single father. So he said something like, yeah, if he's such a great father, why did he get fired from his job? He said really nasty stuff like that, really nasty stuff about my ex, like personal. Like really personal, like online. I was like, how could you do this? How could you do this personal? And then I got back on the same show. The guy let me be on the same show to answer him, and I just totally like ripped him a new asshole. And the next thing I know, Andy, Scott, and Ross signed a piece of paper saying they're throwing me out of the Dictators.
But were the Dictators even a thing at that point?
No, this now. They said
now.
this to me like 2 months ago. No, it's a bunch of cobwebs.
Yeah.
Andy was mad because we did Dictators NYC and it was taken as the Dictators. He was mad because we drew more people, made more money, had more fun, and did better than any version of the Dictators ever. And he was upset. So now it was him against the three of us. And all of a sudden, Scott, for some reason, went on Andy's side. And then all of a sudden, Ross was on the road with me for 5 years, playing in Europe twice a year. And all of a sudden, Ross is against me. So, I'm not letting this go. Like, they can do what they want. They can play Dictators. They can make a Dictators record stuff. But you know what? They can't take my 25% away that I've had for 43 years.
Wow.
They just can't do that. So there's going to be another one of these. And the thing is, with the Dictators, there's no money. There's no money to fight over. It's like a bunch of 68. Andy's 68 years old, and his mother died and left him $1 million, and he's fighting over pennies. It seems like what's happened. It seems seems like it never was like this, but I have to take a guess because I haven't talked to these guys in over 2 years. It just seems like there was a way I behaved and a way I acted for a long enough period of time that everybody got tired of being around me and they just want to get rid of me. And if it wasn't, and I could take one at a time. Like one at a time. Andy, we've been enemies for decades. Ross, I called him up. I said, Ross, I had two of the worst years of my life. You're one of my best friends ever. How could you not fucking call me or text me or email me saying, how are you? How's your son? Not once in 2 years. How could you fucking be like that? What kind of person are you? And because of that, he signed this thing to get me thrown out of the band.
That's
I mean, I can't figure out any other reason. I can't. What did I do to the guy? I mean, we had a ball every night on stage, traveling around the world.
Mm.
And the thing was, the guy asked Andy. He asked him, "How come you're not as mad as Ross as you are as Richard?" Because Ross named the band. Ross was on the road with the band. Ross made money with the band. He goes, "I am mad at Ross." That's what he said. I am mad at Ross. But Andy's he's always had a thing for me. He's got a thing for me. He would never admit it. You know what he admits? He admits that I don't care enough about the music and all he cares about the music. He said such dumb things. He goes, see, all I care about the music. If I write new songs and 20 people come to see it, I don't care. I don't care. As long as I get the music out. And to me, it's like after 43 years, if I wrote songs and 20 people came to see me, I would care. As a matter of fact, I did write songs. With Dictators, I never wrote any songs. All of a sudden, I have an album out, and I have another album I could put out tomorrow if I wanted to.
It's just a shame, but that's the way it's
I know,
turned
everyone
into.
says that.
Yeah,
I know.
it is. So
It is. I'm 66, he's 68, and there's cobwebs. What are we fighting over? Cobwebs.
and it's you're
There's
talking
nothing
about,
there.
and you're talking about something that started back, 1974, where the seeds of this thing. It's like if Wayne County can brain you with a with a microphone stand, and you guys can bury the hatchet, why couldn't you do that with Andy after almost 50 years?
That's a good point.
Yeah. Tell me if I'm wrong. Andy never swung it at you with a microphone stand or a guitar, right?
No, that's a good point. We got along in college days and late high. I think we met in the early college days. We got drunk. We had fun. We started a rock band. There's a point at which he just, I think, stopped having respect for how I work, and then I stopped respecting him for not respecting me, and then it just grew from there.
Yeah.
I mean, we went in and made the Dictators Forever Dictators album. He had 3 more songs with a girl on it, and 3 less songs with me. And all our promoters were like, "What is this? What is this? A song with 3 songs with Richard on it, and 6 songs with some girl on it?" So Andy wrote 3 new songs with me on it, and then took off the 3 songs with the girl. I mean, that left to his own devices. That's what he did.
So I do want to ask you a couple things about the podcast. You don't know Dick. I know you got a YouTube channel. Tell me a little bit about where those things are standing right now.
Well, actually, everybody who taught me about podcasts said the one thing you got to do is do it every week, even if it's nothing to say, even if it's something, anything. And I've missed about 8 weeks in a row, so I'm really disappointed in myself. What I'm hopefully going to try to do is do like 2 a week for like 4 weeks or something to catch up a little. The show on YouTube, I just started just to put on like wrestling masks and do goofy things like 10 minutes here and there. But I came up with a great idea. I came up with the Handsome Dick Manitoba cooking show called Chef of the Future. And it's going to come on as soon as I can figure out how to get my cell phone to cover my chopping block, myself, and my stove. As soon as I can get all that covered in one, I'm looking for one of these gimmick things that holds it in a certain way, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
As soon as I can do that, I have so many ideas for a great cooking show. And my cooking shows will be stories, too. It's not just going to be, here's how you make this. Here's a story, how I learned how to make this. It's going to be funny.
Yeah. Well,
And I'm working with a few different possibilities. I don't have the exact people yet, but I've talked to a few people. And what I want to do is start off with a really small show. Let's say we open up with 2 songs, and then I just start talking, maybe telling a story, asking people questions, like whatever. I don't know. I just have to put it together in my head and make it work out. And
well,
I will.
I can't wait to see it because I mean, I've seen the videos, I've listened to a bunch of podcasts, and they're really, really good. So I'm sure you're going to get it and knock it out of the park. We appreciate.
I won't waste my time. I won't waste my time.
Right. Well, Dick, listen, I appreciate the time, like I said, and it's great to talk to you. I wish you all the luck in recovery and getting back to business and having fun with yourself.
And next time, I hope I'm not. I didn't wake up from a nap, so I could remember more words quickly here.
You did perfect. You did perfect.
More quickly.
Dick, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Hey, my pleasure, man. Thank you. Be well. Stay away from that fucking virus.
So there you go. Handsome Dick Manitoba on Backseat's Musical Podcast. Thanks for listening. You can email me at bax@rock102.com. Better yet, tell all your friends. Share it. Review it. Check us out on social media. Listen to Backseat's Musical Fun Bag Sunday nights, 9 o'clock Eastern Time on rock102.com.